In this video, I'm going to break down how you can reach your potential as a basketball player with 5 simple action strategies, with the most important coming last in this video. So you're going to want to make sure you're staying tuned. As a high school coach here in Los Angeles, I have been obsessing over here in 2024 on how I can help my athletes reach their potential. So I read The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle. Greatness isn't born, it's grown. Here's how. Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, The Science of Achieving Greater Things, and Deep Skill, the basketball coaches and players guide to understanding and developing true skill, Coleman Ayers By Any Means Basketball. So let's dive in to the first actionable tip. The first actionable tip is number 1, to grow our myelin. And so what is myelin? I'm going to read you a bit of a page from The Talent Code. All right, so here, skill, right? In skill, myelin is the cell that we have that represents how much skill we have of a certain, aspect, whether it's shooting or whether it's handling the rock, whether it's cooking. So here we got skill is a cellular insulation that wraps neural circuits and that grows in response to certain signals. The more time and energy you put into the right kind of practice, the longer you stay in the Clarissa zone, firing the right signals through your circuits. So the more skill you get, or to put in a slightly different way, the more myelin you earn, right? And so this is super simple. It's an opportunity, right? Every time I train my shot, I become a better shooter. And I'm going to get into a later point that is going to kind of build on this, because we can't just roll the ball out and shoot, right? Number 1, this makes sense because we have to obviously practice a certain skill over and over and over again to get better at it. And at the same time, we have to, in basketball, practice that skill with live defenders that I'll get into. So let's move on to our second tip. Our second tip perfectly builds off of our last, because we're talking about variability now. So when you train, you do not want to train the same reps over and over and over again unless you're working on your form for your shot. The best players are the best problem solvers and the most adaptable. So here in Coleman Ayers' Deep Skill book, I'm going to read you a page from the variability chapter, all right, not the full page. So to learn or to fit in that zone of optimal improvement, so that's how we build that myelin, right? Like we talked about in the first point. Most of the time we need to solve problems fresh, right? We need fresh problems to solve. Rather than getting accustomed to the same problem, we need to put ourselves or athletes in a position to recalibrate and solve a new problem each time. And if you go through and you watch any basketball game from youth all the way up to high school, all the way up to professional basketball on the men's and women's side, what you will see is you will never see the same play twice. Even if it looks very similar, right? It may be a different player guarding the offensive player, right? Maybe it will be, right, a 6'10 guy, or it'll be a 6'2. You have to learn how to finish with different size, strength, height. And so the more variability you can get, especially with players who are better than yourself, and we'll get to that a little bit later, the better you're going to get and you're going to reach your potential. Basketball is about problem solving. And so I don't want to solve the same problem when I train by doing the same crossover twice, by doing it for an entire hour. If I just do one move for an entire hour, I'm going to be great at solving that. However, in a game, that may only come up one time. So therefore, I'm not working my skills to be a great holistic basketball player, to be adaptable, to be able to finish, to make decisions. So that is a great point. You want to make sure that you practice with variability. So let's move on to our third point. Point comes from the book Hidden Potential, and it talks about becoming uncomfortable and being okay with discomfort. And so I'm going to share the story that Adam wrote in there about his journey to becoming a professor and how it can potentially apply to you as a basketball player. So Adam is an introvert, right? He's a writer. He's someone who's very intellectual, right? Has his thoughts and is very socially anxious. When he was a student, he sat in the back of the class. He didn't raise his hand. However, he wanted to become a professor and share certain ideas as a social scientist. And so the way that he became great at lecturing as a professor is he had to lecture, right? He had to step out of his comfort zone. He was painfully awkward, right? He asked, he sought feedback. So one of the ways, right, he put himself in a ton of uncomfortable positions. He reached out to some of his other friends that were professors and tried to give as many lectures as he could. So one of the things that I feel like athletes today could take an effort and step out of their comfort zone is play against people who are way better than you, and maybe you have to play off the ball. Maybe you have to learn how to play a certain role. Maybe you play and be uncomfortable, right, doing something new, right? So I'm learning a different move, right? I'm learning how to catch and rip, all right? And I'm just want to stretch myself. If I'm always comfortable with what I'm doing, I'm not going to be able to reach my potential because I'm not going to grow that myelin, right? And sometimes that means you may have a bad practice where you miss a lot, where, at the end of the day, it feels like, oh, I just didn't get better, right? May not feel good. However, our brains are great at adapting, right? So if I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone each practice, maybe take a couple steps back, that may end up leaping me forward than trying to always be comfortable, right? So if I'm doing ball handling, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, right? When I'm getting up shots, right, I'm trying to go from 7 to 8 shots out of 10, or I'm trying to work a half step quicker. And so that is a great way to get and reach our potential, is to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, something all three of these books talk about that builds right on top of being uncomfortable is being comfortable with failure. And I think that just goes hand in hand, and it can be very uncomfortable to fail, especially in today's generation. I talk about this a lot with my athletes on the podcast about how challenging it is to be an athlete today when all you see is highlights, right? You feel like you have to go knock down every shot. Well, guess what? Players like Luka, Tyrese Halliburton, LeBron, Steph, they miss shots, they turn the ball over, they had terrible games, and we don't get an opportunity to see them train behind closed doors. Yeah, those are the professionals at the highest level. So imagine that and bring ourselves all the way down. I work with high school athletes. Of course you're going to miss shots. Of course you're going to turn the ball over. It's how you respond. It's how comfortable you are with failure. You cannot be a great athlete and reach your potential if you are always going to be afraid of failure. There are going to be times where you take a last shot or you miss the last pass and you fail. It is a part of life. And I think that's one of the best things about sports is it teaches us how to be a part to succeed in life. And we must absolutely be comfortable with failure. And just because you fail in a game, right, you lose a game, right, you don't hit your goal in a workout, it does not mean you are a failure. It just means at that time, right, I have to learn from something I missed. It's going to happen, right? We've all heard that we miss 100% of the shots we don't take. And of course, we want to take good quality shots. We don't want to just jack up whatever we get. However, we have to play with a semblance of confidence and be comfortable with failure. That's where confidence comes from, is because you are going to fail. And I'm saying this a lot in terms of like I've struggled with this. I've struggled with this as a basketball player, right? Where I'm just like I don't want to miss because I don't want to let my teammates down. When in reality, if you should have taken the shot and you swung it, you're actually letting your teammates down by not playing with confidence. And so that's a great way to reframe that, is to always play and not be scared to fail, because we're going to fail time and time again, right? A great shooter in the NBA misses 6 out of 10 threes, right? A great shooter only makes 4 out of 10 threes, right? So we have to understand that we're going to miss shots. We're not going to be perfect, which leads me to my last and most important point, is that you have to take initiative. There's a difference, right? If you really want to reach your potential, you cannot wait for coaches to always give you feedback. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see with other athletes. They just wait for their coach to give them, thoughts, or their teammates. No, you have to be hungry. You have to go out and seek knowledge. You have to be curious. You have to read books, right? Like I am. I want to be the best coach I can be, but I can't wait until some coach that I'm working under, like a varsity coach, tells me I have to be hungry. I have to go learn about the X's and O's. I have to learn about the psychology of a basketball player. I have to go learn about strength and conditioning. if I want to be the best coach I can be, I have to do the work myself, right? I have to take responsibility for my own development and reaching my own potential. It's not my responsibility. It's not your coach's responsibility. It's not your parents' responsibility. It is your responsibility to become a great basketball player and a great person. It's not anyone else's responsibility. Now, can those people significantly help you? And should you have great coaches? Absolutely. Find the best coach, find the best program that helps you develop. Absolutely. However, they are not solely responsible, right? They are guides. But at the end of the day, you have to take initiative. The best players that I work with are always seeking new knowledge. And it's not just watching highlights. They watch full games, right? They watch different, people like myself, different coaches on YouTube. They go out and not only watch, they go out and do, and it's consistent. You need to take initiative, and you need to be consistent, because if you really want to reach your potential, you have to be training with intentionality. You have to be able to adapt, change things on the fly, get 1% better here and there, and that's going to be the best way. So if you got something from this video, please subscribe to the channel. For Coach Furtado, I'm sharing wisdom for young athletes. I want to help underestimated hoopers like myself maximize their potential. That's our goal with BTG Basketball here in LA. My goal is to help you become a better person as well, a better leader. And obviously, if you're a coach or a parent watching this, you want to share this with your athlete, Bridging Impact Podcast is great because I interview people that are way smarter than I am, and I get an opportunity to kind of continue to learn. So I appreciate you all, and I will be dropping another video next week. So make sure to subscribe to stay tuned. Coach Furtado out.